Alright, here's my second screencast for the article, and I am analyzing the article A Penny for Your Thoughts, and Jackson wrote it right here. And so the article, before you even click on it and you're scrolling through the blogs, it says A Penny for Your Thoughts, and then it has this right here, and it says America is being robbed of $115 million a year. That's the very first thing you see, so it catches your attention right away. Whoa, America, they're losing tons of money every year. What's going on? And then how does this relate to pennies for your thoughts? 'Cause that's a well-known phrase, so you're like, what's going on? How does this happen? So it makes you want to click on it, and it drags you in. And then you come here, and you go through the article, and then, so it says America is being robbed of $115 million a year. Who would do this? How do we, to quote President Obama, know whose ass to kick? So here it's bringing in President Obama, and that's bringing in some of the political scene. President Obama is a well-known feature person because he is the president. And then it says, well, there's not going to be any ass kicking today, for the enemy is actually on the inside of our government. And so here it has Obama, and he's the president, and then very political and in our government, and then it says that the enemy is in our government. So we're thinking, okay, what's going on? And then here it goes on to say weak in power but strong in numbers, and you're just thinking, what is weak in power, strong in numbers, and is in the government, and I can't have its ass kicked. And then it is none other than the humble penny right here. The humble penny. So you think, oh, it's just a little penny. How could it possibly be costing us $115 million a year on this occasion that he states up here? And so then you go down a little more, and it says a penny is worth 1 cent, and it starts to explain, but the cost to make it is more than that, and so it may not seem like much, but it adds up to $10 million a year. And see, that still doesn't seem like much, and he says that. It's not very much, but that's not the real issue. So he jumps to the $10 million not actually being the issue of the money and into the usefulness of a penny. It says, when was the last time you used a penny? So it's talking to you, and it's getting personal about it, and they're thrown around. And then he says, I think the last time I used a penny for anything was as a projectile. So here it's you never, when was the last time that you actually used a penny? And then I used a penny, so that's bringing an ethos, or I think it is at least, and so it's connecting. He has the same morals as you. He doesn't use pennies, and you don't really use pennies. And so it says that these things, the parking meters, they don't even accept pennies. And then a lot of stores have a take a penny, leave a penny jar to eliminate the need of them. So stores and other places are actually trying to eliminate the need of pennies, and you can't actually use pennies in vending machines and parking meters. So why do we have them? So it says, why is tax money making something that in most people's eyes is essentially worthless? This is connecting tax. Nobody likes that word, tax, usually. And so that's giving a negative thought. Taxes has a negative connotation. And so then we're wasting this money, this tax money, making something that is actually worthless. So why are we wasting our tax money that we don't even like to pay to make something that's actually worthless? And so then it says again, tax money that could be spent on more worthwhile things, like a dollar coin. And so that's actually commonly used. So then it gives a practical solution or another, like a suggestion that something actually practical be made with the money that's being wasted with pennies. So it preludes to the thought that maybe we should eliminate pennies. Then it says, annoyed yet? That's just the tip of the iceberg. And so you're thinking, wow, this is a lot of information up here. And then it says, yeah, that's a lot. And then, but that's just the tip of it. That's only a little bit of it. And you're thinking, wow, that's crazy. And so then he jumps to nickels, and he starts talking about nickels and how they're wasting money. And so they're worth 5 cents, but it costs 6 cents to make them, and that ups more than the pennies to $12 million every year. That's 2 million more. And so then that used to even be higher, it says right here. And then the manufacturing costs of the penny and the nickel are $22 million. And so that's more money, but still, how are we going to get to that $115 million that it said all the way up here? So we don't know what's going on. That's only 22 million. That's a lot of money, but it's just not that 115 that we saw that brought us into the article. And then it goes on and says economists, and so that brings in a little bit more reliability. Economists are trustworthy people usually. Estimate that with the penny and nickel handling and shipping costs, plus the amount of pennies thrown away or lost every year, it is about $115 million. Okay, so on top of the cost that it takes, the extra cost to make the pennies, the 22 million, then it says just to ship them, like to banks and other places, so they can actually go into circulation. And then how many times do we lose pennies? So the amount of pennies that are lost is about $115 million. And then there's where we get that huge number, and it's pretty amazing. So it combines nickels and pennies together to get that $115 million figure. And then it gives a solution over here, and it says stop being so stupidly nostalgic. Nostalgic, I had to look up this word, but it means like clinging to the past and wanting things that are in the past, and then it says stupidly, and so like you really just want something but you're being stupid about it and you're only doing it because it's a tradition. That's what it says in the next sentence. The only reason the penny still exists is because it has been around for hundreds of years and most people don't want to see it go. So then that just goes back to tradition, that we want that, and that we only want this penny that's costing us so much money, $115 a year, just because it's been around forever and it's a tradition and we're being nostalgic, so we should stop it because we're stupid. And then it goes on in the last sentence with a closer. Seriously, there must be a better way to honor Abraham Lincoln than putting him on something that is a useless copper disc wasting tax dollars. So Abraham Lincoln was, in a lot of people's eyes, he was the best president that we've had, and that's debatable to some people, but he's still a very highly respected president, and so we're honoring him. But how are we honoring him? Right now, we're putting him on a useless copper disc that's wasting our money, and so we're not even like trying to honor him by just trying to make these things. It's just useless. And so how is that really honoring him, to put him on some worthless piece of junk that nobody uses and we're trying to eliminate the need of, to one of our greatest presidents? So that's saying we need to find a better way to honor him. Why do we have these pennies? They're not useful. And it gives a good closer. And I think that this is a really good article. It was definitely humorous, and that helped a little bit because nobody's really thought about pennies. So I thought it was a pretty good article by Jackson. And that is all. Thanks. Bye.